Hello, how's it going? I'm Jeremy. Today in this episode, I wanted to talk about fishing, fish farming, overfishing, government subsidies for all of this. I'm doing this because there is this website called humanprogress.org, and their articles, they make these based off of what research and the data says instead of feelings and emotions. It's like, yes, we understand that these are problems and we understand your feelings of frustration with it, but your feelings and emotions don't change the facts, and just handing out money doesn't make things better. But this article is titled, "The State of the World's Oceans is Made Worse by Government Subsidies. The Negative Impact of Government Subsidies on Small Fisheries and Fish Stock." It's a good article. One of the things that I like is that I'll leave a link in the description below to both this article and to the video that I also have that's going to talk about a better solution to all of this. But whenever you're going over the article, if you wish to read it, all of these little blue sections right here, if you click on them, it has some kind of information that's related to it. So right here, that they're showing about what's going on with overfishing, where it is. And then again, all of this stuff has links to other things. Let me see if I can find a little better one. There's another one. So here's the figures and charts. That this is a study and it examines the impacts of subsidies on the profitability and ecological stability of the North Sea fisheries over the past 20 years. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, good. This is more along the lines of the kind of information that I want. I don't want to hear about some lying politician who's just regurgitating whatever the crowd says. So if you want better news, if you want better information, if you're tired of the lies and the nonsense, then give this video a like, thumbs it up, subscribe and become a member if there's such an option on whichever platform that you're watching. I also have Patreon and Subscribestar. So let's go ahead and get into it. The article reads, "As most people know, the future of the oceans could be at risk from pollution and overfishing. The government's first instinct is to do what it always does, which is to step in and assume responsibility for the problem. But is that always the right solution? Government intervention frequently does more harm than good. Rather than relying on politics to protect the oceans, we are better off leaving the future to science." It's like, yeah, where's this list of achievements that the government has done? I don't know of any such list of the government doing anything worth a damn at all. There might be some civil things that have gone on, but whenever it comes to technology and innovation and machines and all, there's nothing out there. They haven't come up with a damn thing. Not that I'm aware of anyways. I know about subsidies some because I have several members of my family who are farmers. You know that if you have farmland, that the government will pay you not to farm it. And I've seen this with politicians too, where they own farmland and they get paid money not to farm it, not to work, to just sit there and to do nothing. It's like, well, that seems wrong. If you want the price of food to go down, then you want as many farmers out there farming and competing so that they're competing with each other driving the prices down as much as possible. You don't want a small little market, because whenever you get to where there's only one, that's a monopoly. Continuing. For example, take fishing industry subsidies. The fishing industry is hurting with pollution and rising temperatures among the factors impacting the lives of commercial fishermen. In response, governments, not just the US, but governments pay over $22 billion a year in capacity enhancing subsidies that help offset the cost of fuel, gear, and vessel maintenance. These subsidies make it more affordable to fish, but they also lead to the overexploitation of the fish population and make it difficult for small fisheries to compete. Rather than helping, the subsidies ultimately undermine the fishing industry. It's like, yeah, that's right. So if you're just new into all this, you may not even know that there's any subsidies to go and grab. Chances are there's not going to be enough money involved with this. That there's just not. An example that's going on right now is with Joe Biden, with his administration, is that they're giving a bunch of money to these restaurants that have been closed down. They've already given out, I think, like $9 billion. They have a budget of $27 billion. But already they've got all these restaurants that they're asking for an additional $65 billion. And they're currently being sued because they're not allowing straight white male business owners to take part, that they're being excluded from this. And that's, of course, racist, 100%. It has to be equal and fair across the board. Well, another problem is, well, how are you supposed to know about this in the first place? It's still hard to get good, accurate information out to people. So, if you don't know, all the big companies know for sure, because they have plenty of people. They can hire people just to keep on top of it. So the real large companies, they have lawyers. And this is going to be part of what some of these people do, is that they're going to pay attention to what's going on with the government. And so if there's a problem with there not being enough fish out there, how does giving money to the fishing companies so that they can fish anymore, how does that solve that problem? Doesn't it just make it worse? Oh, we don't have enough fish, so let's throw money out there so they can do even more fishing. The subsidies enhance the monopolization of the commercial fishing industry by allowing only the big players to get their share of fish. Many experts believe that the subsidies deplete the fish stocks that these fisheries rely on, and signs tell us that removing the fishing subsidies would increase the overall availability of fish. Now, I have a feeling I'm going to disagree with this one. Yeah, this is the one that I looked at. I'm going to say this is probably not going to be science, that this is going to be a guess. Or no, I guess, yeah, if they're looking at other countries and what's happened in the past, yeah, okay. Yeah, because it looks like this one's 1991 as a baseline. So, okay, well, I retract that. The government's response, in other words, has led to a decline in catch rates and depletion of fish stocks in deeper waters that were once unfishable. Overall, governments hand out more than $35 billion each year to the commercial fishing industry. That is equal to 20% of the value of every commercial fish caught. With fish stocks at historical lows and much of the water fished beyond the point of recovery. That is probably not correct at all. Is more fishing the answer to our problems? No, that is not the answer to our problems. It's yes, of course, that's the answer to a problem, but you're talking about several problems. And saying that it can't be recovered, one of the co-owners of Church's Chicken, he bought up like 10,000 acres of wasteland somewhere in Texas. He kind of terraformed it, I guess you could say, where he got rid of kind of all this garbage that had taken over, a bunch of weeds, and there are trees that are like weeds, where they have a really big root system. They suck up all the nutrients, then they'll kill others. I saw another video just actually a couple of days ago where they are bringing plants in from other portions of the world. So there are these trees from like China, and over there all their plants are super aggressive. So if you bring them here where that aggressive part of the plants are not how they're built, and it's not a part of their genetic makeup, that they're like these trees, for example, where they grow up really large and fast, and they have this really thick, huge canopy and root system, so they block out the sun and they take up all the nutrients, killing out all the plants that are in between them. But if you have nothing but other plants that are from China, well, they're all aggressive like that. So there was another one that was a vine that it'll go up and it'll like strangle a tree around its trunk, and it'll go up and it will end up above the tree canopy and putting its leaves up there, killing the tree. So yeah, if all the plants are aggressive, then that kind of works out. You introduce it to somewhere in North America where that's not the way the vegetation is, then they just end up dominating. And anyways, this guy who was the co-founder of Church's Chicken, he bought like 10,000 acres of land, and he kind of terraformed it all. He brought in some heavy machinery. He got rid of all these kind of really invasive plants that were there that were causing havoc, and then he replanted all the native grasses, bushes, trees that were there. And then like 11 little streams popped up, a couple of little ponds, and all the wildlife came back. And so there's all these insects and small and large mammals, and came back. So he destroyed the wasteland and created this natural habitat that it originally had been. So I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is possible. And there's also that in China they have the great yellow snake and the great green wall. And the yellow snake is the desert and how it's gotten bigger. And the great green wall is where China's actually gone in. They've planted all this vegetation. They did the same thing. They brought in all these bulldozers and all these huge pieces of equipment to redo the landscaping, because they also made it so that you could put in things like rice paddies so that you could grow, and kind of reclaimed it all. The main overfisheries aren't always in the Western world. The United States is the only Western country to appear in the Pacific Sixth list of countries responsible for 80% of the world's big eye tuna fishing. For example, the others are China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Indonesia. In fact, China is the primary offender. In 2018, China distributed $7.2 billion in subsidies, more than any country in the Pacific Six. The country has nearly 17,000 ships, many of which are illegally trawling through the Pacific. Many of which are illegal. To save the fishing industry, we must prevent overfishing. For that, we should rely on technology. Yes, I agree. Not subsidies. Companies like Fish Tech Marine seek to end bycatch, which accounts for as much as 40% of the world's catch. Bycatch happens when another marine animal is accidentally caught by a fishing net intended for something else. Fish Tech's technology warns sea mammals that rely on echolocation to communicate with one another. If the technology is widely adapted, the mammals will know that they need to stay away from the fished areas, thus avoiding the fishing nets. That will not only save marine life, but reduce the stress and work involved in commercial fishing as well. Now, so I guess the mammals are larger than fish, because I think aren't whales technically they're going to fit in this category. They operate by echolocation, and you obviously don't want those caught in your nets. Or dolphins, they're going to be strong and powerful, and so that would take a lot of work to deal with those. the government is going to spend more money on the fishing industry. They should take on the same subsidies and tie them to conservation and sustainability rather than mega fishing operations. Territorial use rights in fisheries management, for example, allows certain fishermen to fish in certain areas for an allotted amount of time. Countries such as Chile, Belize, Denmark, and the United States have already implemented the turf procedures. Turf. TURF. Yep. You know what that reminds me of? For some reason, it reminds me of Iron Man, where he's talking to a group of students, and he's got this little hologram thing going up of his parents. What movie was that? It was Captain America Winter Soldier, wasn't it? Or no, or was it Civil War? But he said it's BARF for short. Yeah, BARF and turf. Yeah, really good there. So let's take a look at this. And this is a video, the future of ocean farming, innovations in aquaculture. And this is by U.S. Ocean Gov, which I have no idea what that means. It's not the government, that's for sure. It probably means governing, not government.
Demand for seafood is increasing around the world, and the United States is no exception. It requires a little innovation.
And this is great. And so in here, those are little baby fish, and they're here in these tanks. And just one of these fish has like thousands of eggs in it.
A fish like this can hold up to 5,000 eggs.
5,000 eggs in one fish. Now, whenever it's out there in the wild, they're not going to live. The vast majority of them are going to die. Just because of just the hazards of being out there in the wild and not being able to get enough nutrients, getting trapped somewhere in some little crevice because those things are tiny, itty bitty, just getting eaten up by predators that are going to be like, ooh, yummy little fish, you know. And so, yeah, there's just tons of the things. And as they get older, they move them to bigger and bigger fish tanks. And they have to have all this clean water. And that's what all these little tubes are, is that they're just pumping all these fish from one location to the next. And then they end up out in the ocean in these huge fish nets. And right here, there's like an otter or a seal or something. They can't get to the fish. They still have their own fish out here, but they can't go in here and mess with these. So that article, you know, was talking about how you couldn't recover from the loss of fish. It's like, no, if you left them alone, they could. And actually, they can do it pretty quick. I saw a video with Jordan Peterson talking about this, where there was this big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and they couldn't fish there anymore for a few years. And the fish population just exploded, because fishermen weren't fishing there. It took a few years, but it was only a few years, and it was just like bam. They were just all over the place, and fishing did really well whenever it was all kind of good to go afterwards. And this solves all the problems. Whenever the fish are young, they're in protected environments. The temperature is at an ideal temperature for them so that they can all live. They don't have to worry about hard currents. These are little food pellet dispensaries right here, and they just shoot these things out.
As the little fish grow in.
So they get, not only do they get food, but they get good food, healthy food designed for them, and they get plenty of it. So none of them are starving. They don't have to worry about being eaten up by some other predator out there. And that's what these big yellow bags are. These are the fish pellets. You know, and some of it is actually dead fish. It used to be a large portion of the fish pellets were recycled fish, but now because they've been so efficient at it and they've identified other things that the fish need, it's down to like 15%. But that's what fish do. They kind of cannibalize each other in nature. And what this means is that you don't have to have these big, huge boats going way out into the ocean or going really deep to be able to get the fish. They're just right here off the coast. So that means you're burning less fuel. You need less boats. It's all a lot more effective and efficient. And government subsidies did absolutely nothing with this at all. This was capitalism. This was people competing with each other, trying to figure out a way to do things better so that they could get ahead. And because of things like this will make fish cheaper. This will leave the rest of the ocean alone so that it can swell back up in its fish population. You don't have to worry about dolphins or whales or otters or seals or any of this stuff getting caught up in the lines. None of it. And I believe what this was salmon. This was a salmon fish farm that they were dealing with right here. It's like, this is just fantastic. I want more of this stuff. It's not just, hey, let's throw money at it. How does that solve anything? These companies that are getting these subsidies, they're just doing the same old things, except they're going out further and they're going out deeper. It didn't solve the problem. It's just made things worse. This made it better. Solved all these problems. You don't need that thing either from that radar thing that one company was doing. What was the name of that company? Fish Tech. Don't need that. You don't have to worry about the mammals that are swimming around getting caught up. Great. Fantastic. So if you've understood all this and you like this and you want progress and innovation instead of a bunch of whiny children complaining about their feelings and their problems and they don't have any solutions, if you get this, then give me a thumbs up, give it a like. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate your support. I've also got Patreon and Subscribe Star if things are going really well for you and you wish to help out a little bit more. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Bye.